Welcome to another episode of the Landscaping Podcast, brought to you by Landscaping Unlimited. We've got a truck episode for you today as we were on the road, moving and grooving, doing what it is we do, working on this beautiful day. Shay, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm good, man. It's another day. Spring is here. It's cold outside right now for us, but spring is here and green industry is moving. We've talked about it before, where there's calendar days and there's a calendar month that everyone goes off of, and then you have the green industry calendar, which is based off soil temps and based off of what happens out in the environment, which tells us, hey, we got to get back to work, and that's where we're at. The environment's kicking. Spring's here.
It's wild. Like, we had that warm weather, everything started growing, and then this morning it was like 31 degrees my way to work today. So that's go North Carolina, let's do the thing. All right, Shay, it's been a very active week for you. Let's do it. There's two major highlights, but I mean, obviously things are always going on. But this week in particular, in the past 7 days, talk to me about your life and what you've had going on.
Yeah, so the past couple weeks have been pretty busy. A lot of studying, and then a lot of preparations for the Turfgrass Council presentation that we gave. And so it was a lot of firsts for me, a lot of things I've never done, and slam. A lot of firsts for me that I've never done, and I was excited to get in there and give a presentation about an industry that I love, an industry that I advocate for, and an industry that I'm excited to see grow, that I'm excited to see young people join and see it as a career, not just a job. So yeah, we gave the presentation at Turfgrass Council, talked about the industry. I'm excited to see where this is going. I'm excited to see where it takes the company. The other avenues that we're going to get from this, as far as presenting, as far as educational events go, that we're going to bring back to our guys, not just to the public. And so that's something I'm super excited about, mainly because it's been a need that our guys have been wanting for a while. More education for them, and this is opening the eyes of what we can do and how vast and wide the green industry is, and how it just doesn't stop with you and your physical proximity of what you're doing, and that there is no physical proximity when it comes to the podcast. There's no physical proximity of education, and when you record something and you give educational events, how that's out there to the world, and you can put that out there and expand the knowledge of the green industry.
When you think about all the people that you can meet and interact with and learn from and educate, and we live in a time where if landscapers, hardscapers, individuals in the green industry aren't capitalizing on that opportunity, it's like a missed window for both parts of, like, both parties in that. Like all communication, there's the person sending and receiving. So you have to send it well, and they've got to receive it well. And so that's how communication works. And they can send it back, and then you can receive it back. And when you can do that right online, when you can do that right through podcasts, through YouTube channels, a lot of people have social media accounts where they're going out and just educating people. You're able to speak to such a wide audience that you're going to get a lot of listeners who are going to receive what you're saying and start to understand things that otherwise they never would have. There may not be an individual in their entire town that's talking about all the aspects of what the green industry offers. They'd be like, I know of some landscapers, but I've never heard of those landscapers talk about their job. Yep. And because this is not a widely discussed profession, we see quite a bit because we are in the industry. And that goes for most. It's like you see what it is that the algorithm has said, all right, you're clearly interested in this, let me show you more. But I can speak to friends and family who are like, I had no clue this went that far, because unlike a lot of other professions, this one isn't often discussed in school. There's not a lot of books being spoken about it. A lot of the influencers that you see online, there's a lot of fitness influencers, there's a lot of education, you see a lot about teaching, you see a lot about so many things, but when it comes to landscaping and hardscaping, when it comes to pesticide programs, when it comes to all the other elements that go into what it is that goes into property management, property care, like when you're not talking about real estate, it's almost flat. But here we are doing it, and I'm glad you brought that up, because going to that event and speaking on it, you spoke to those in the audience, and it was interesting because when you brought up age, there was that individual who asked you the question on that, because they're young. And so the industry is growing, and these young guys, they're coming up and they're asking you questions like, well, what do you do when you're 18, 19, 20 running a business and you're not 30, 40, 50? Yep. People look at you different. You shared a personal story about that, which was awesome. But seeing that happen, you gave the speech in there, and then we dropped it onto the podcast. And so last episode 51, was that speech. So people got to learn as if they were there. They didn't have to be in that classroom. The Turfgrass Council, gave the platform, but then we brought that platform onto our platform, and now all these other individuals are going to learn about what it is you were discussing, which is really cool to me.
Yeah, I mean, to recap on the age story that I told in the presentation, and then to dive into that a little deeper, because it's something I really want to hit home to anyone listening to this, is that don't let your age define what your knowledge is. If you know it, then go and chase that dream, and don't let anyone dim that light. Still in your slogans here, but don't let anyone dim that light. Don't let anyone dim that light from you, because you know your worth, you know your value, you know the knowledge that you possess, and so go out and pursue what it is that you want to do, and you're going to learn that this industry will accept you for that. Will accept you for the knowledge that you have rather than your age. I think it took me a while to really realize that, because I went to go sell a job at 19 years old and didn't get it because the guy asked me my age, and didn't believe that I knew enough to do it. He didn't know that I grew up in the industry and literally saw this stuff from the day I was born. What he was asking us to do, I had built for his neighbor, a couple of years ago, and so it wasn't anything new to me. Wasn't new to our company. Wasn't new to the industry. He just saw the age and thought, "There's no way he can do this because he's 19 years old." And the other key takeaway from this is, we don't talk about it enough. So people think that the youth is uneducated when it comes to the green industry. And a lot of this stems from me in high school. I knew the green industry. I grew up in it. And so coming through high school, I always knew this is what I was going to do. There was no doubt in my mind. This is what I loved. This is where I was going, because I knew how big the green industry was. But everybody I went to school with didn't know that. All the parents of the friends that I knew didn't know that. When they asked about education, you go to their house and you tell them, well, I'm not going to go to college, or I'm not going to go do this, or yada, yada, yada. I'm going to be a landscaper. It's almost like you got looked down at as, oh, you're gonna cut grass for a living, and cool, that's not really a viable job. Or you're going out to date somebody, and they're asking, they want to know, sit down with shotgun talk and all that kind of stuff, and they want to know what you're doing with your life, and you tell them, you say, well, I'm going to be a landscaper. This is what I'm going to do. We run a family business. And they kind of give you that little head nod, like, well, you're not worthy enough to date my daughter, or whatever it is.
You know what they hear? They hear, I'm going to do landscaping because I can't do anything else.
Yeah, that's right.
That's it's the lowest one you could pick.
Yep. And so, not faulting them. They didn't know. They didn't know how big the green industry is, because it wasn't talked about. And so that's what I really want to drive the message home to anyone listening is, talk about the industry you're in and advocate for it, because no one's going to know how important it is, know how vast the industry is, unless we get out there and we talk about it. They look at it as a small niche in this big world, and the reality is landscaping is in every property that there is. It's in every state project, every county project, every project where something is done, landscaping is involved in it. And if you don't believe me, go look for any set of building plans, and you're going to find a landscape plan on it, which means that, guess what? That's our industry. We're part of a massive organization that's spread across everything that's built in the country. And so it's not a small niche, it's a very large niche. It's right up there with building contractors, plumbers, electricians, all that stuff. There's no small part to it. It's vast.
Actually, I'm going to put a bounty out right now. To anybody that's watching this or listening to this, the first person that can bring up a property that you find that had zero landscaping involved in it whatsoever, I'll send you one of our podcast hats. You'll get a hat. If you can prove that wrong, find the thing that no landscaper or hardscaper has touched. Put your thumb on that. You say, hey, not this. Nobody touched this. That wasn't a part of the plans, or that wasn't involved in what it is when we were building this house or this business or this property that we're looking to manage. Find that, and then bam, free hat to you.
Yeah. Now, we're not talking about you got called to rewire an electrical panel inside someone's house. I mean, let's not get stupid here. You got to understand the rules of what we're talking about. Anything that's been built, commercially built, or residential home that's been built, roadway that's been built, ditches that didn't need to be dug. I mean,
everything.
If you don't believe it, open your eyes. What you see, there's landscaping there. That's how easy it is.
When you look at museums, outside of the museum, it's all intentional. When you look at schools, universities, elementary schools, it's all intentional. Oftentimes the plants chosen. Actually, this is a discussion we've already had. When you're working with the homeowner, you ask them, like, how old are your kids? Because you don't want prickly or sensitive to damage, like, delicate plants when you know there's going to be little kids running around and playing sports around them.
Yep.
In the same way, if you're running an elementary school, you might want a different look than if you're running a science museum. The things that capture people's attention. A higher end home, the plants there might be a little more exotic than another cost-friendly home. If you're going to be in an environment where there's a lot of foot traffic, every part of that, a landscaper touched.
Yeah.
And when I told Jackie that the first time, she was like, I'd never thought about it that way. I was like, I know. Neither, like the first time you said it, I never thought about it that way. But when you put those words like out there in that order, and people are like, oh, every house and business built has had a landscaper go in there and intentionally put their touches on it per the designer or per the homeowner specifications, you realize every house we've driven by on this drive, every business we've driven by on this drive, someone like us, someone else in this industry has been a part of that building. And I'm actively looking because I put the hat on. I want to get myself another hat. And I'm like, this house, nope, that's all intentional. And I could do that the entire ride. I'm not going to. It'd be a very long episode. But the point stands. This is not the base career that you can only do if you can't do anything else. This is one of the most in-demand careers, especially when you start. I have this graph I want to put out, and I haven't even shown you yet. It was a list of everything that AI was starting to replace, and a lot of the things that the machine can go and do better. And there's from assembly lines, checkout. There was all sorts of like your legal advice, a lot of nurses, which I didn't expect, but those who provide that one-on-one care. AI is going to be able to remember your history and then interact with you, engage with you on a level that's very personalized to you. And so you think certain jobs are untouchable, but they're not. You know, we're going to get to the point where your doctor is actually some AI algorithm that's like, yo, I can assess this better than a doctor. Because while the doctor has gone through a lot of schooling and all that, I can remember every single detail you brought up, do trend analysis, and know what's available right now and give that to you on the spot. Like, that's how good and fast it's working. I mean, AI is incredible. And you look here at the green industry, it was talking about concrete, it was talking about construction, and it was talking about landscapers and hardscapers.
Yeah.
You cannot find a machine to go and do it because it's every single one's unique, and you've got to be able to operate in all these different environments. And when you're out there, the machine's not going to know where the irrigation pipe is to work around. It's just going to know where he wants to put something. Yep. So our industry was one of the best industries in it, and it was a lot of the labor. It was a lot of the service provided outdoors. AI can't touch that yet. And so, like, well, people who are going to be replaced out of these other jobs saying, oh, well, I'm not going to be a landscaper. I did well in school. Dude, you're going to have to do well in school to become a landscaper at some point. Because people, like, businesses like this, the candidates, I mean, we already got a long list. The candidates coming in because they're like, well, I went to school for that, but I'm going to shift gears for something long-term that's stable. They're going to be finding their way here.
Yep.
And so it's just going to be more and more applicants coming into this because there's nowhere else for them to go because those jobs have been replaced.
One other thing is there's education in landscaping. It's not just you have to be educated to do landscaping or that you're going to need to be at some point. There have been programs within colleges for years revolving around landscaping. And I think a lot of people didn't know that a lot of those were there, or they geared them towards like, oh, well, if I'm going to be a greenskeeper or superintendent at a golf course, you know, then I need to go to NC State, get a degree in turf. And all that can be true because you're going to educate yourself and you're going to learn more about the industry. You're going to learn more about, you know, turf itself so you know how to take care of it, which is great. However, landscapers, when they're installing commercial projects, are the same way. You're installing residential projects, it's the same way. You need to be educated in what it is you're doing. And so you need to educate yourself in that. And that colleges are starting to widely spread. And at one point, it was mostly just programs in like 4-year degrees, like NC State or A&T. And now you're seeing them in the community colleges, and you're seeing more community colleges pick up more and more of those courses. And so you don't have to go to 4-year colleges to do that. You can go to community colleges, and you can take also the path of not going to a college and still learn just as much as someone else while on the job and doing continuing education training. That's vastly how I learned a lot of my knowledge was going out to continuing ed, hearing a presentation, picking up what it was that they said, and then coming home and doing my own research on it and learning more. And a lot of that research included NC turf files from NC State, going through and reading all their files and stuff. But I didn't go to a 4-year college to get that. What I did is I put a lot of time and a lot of passion into the industry that I'm in and built off of that. Built off of conversations and communication with other people within the industry and joined together, and we said, hey, this is an industry worth advocating for. Because we are educated in it, we know that it takes this, and so education is one of those things you go to a college and you learn it, or you can learn it on your own. And I think it's important that's known.
Well, I'm thinking about the guys that they come here from high school, like, I don't know what I want to do. They start working in here, And then let's say they're like, all right, I'm really interested in the chemical program, or I'm really interested in just becoming a project manager or learning more about this. And while they work with us and they hop on the machine, they get into the Z sprayer, and we start talking about the measurements, we start talking about the properties we maintain and why we're using certain chemicals and not others. They're learning all that. They're like, I really want to get into this. All right, cool. Here are the books. Go and learn even more, and take that initiative. All right, so you've learned more. All right, go take the test. You get to work. So I'm talking about my experience. You go and you meet all the people that are there, and you're talking to them, and they're all also interested in what it is you're doing. And then you go, pass the test. It's like, all right, you come back, and now you're certified to go operate on your own. Here they would still work on your license, but they have their own.
Yep.
So now they have their license, which means they're educated in this. They understand what's going on. That helps you because now there's somebody else you can trust to run the program, and is as knowledgeable and going to get the experience on the properties. And I'm like, this guy or this girl or whoever comes out of high school now has this license that will help them go out and serve the clients, serve this company, and they're providing a service, a full-time career for themselves, all without having to go to get the degree. And it's not a knock on the degree, but it's they took a different path.
Yeah.
And it's like the kids I say kids, I'm getting old, man. It's like all the high schoolers that are like, I want to go into the trades. I want to go to be an electrician. I want to go to be a welder. This is the exact same thing. I want to be a landscaper, and like this part of landscaping is the most interesting to me. So I kind of feel drawn towards it. And so you can go get licensed, get certified, network in those environments. Like there are huge events going on where people who are into this type of thing are connecting and going through the motions of just like living their best life. They get to go to Equip Expos. They get to go see the new equipment. They get to see the new technology. They get to go and do what they love, and they're outdoors doing it. They're solving problems. And I think that's one of the most, I would say, alluring, like that's my favorite part of this, is I have to use my brain to solve problems, and I've got to use my body to do the work. And I think doing honest work and solving problems really suits me. And I was a horrible student, measured to public school standards. I was a very good student if it's like I'm interested in solving stuff. I often say we're like Sherlock Holmes. You gotta find the evidence, find the clues to put it together to solve the case. And each property is like its own case we gotta solve. I love that. But then you gotta go in the heat, dig the trench, get the pipe, put that together, make it work. I'm thinking about one of our clients where we've had a lot of irrigation done there, and it's like you fix this and now you gotta solve that because it just leads to the next thing and the next thing. And it's like your brain's gotta keep turning. And to me, that stimulation, like that's what a lot of individuals lack when they're in jobs where they're like, I hate going to work. You don't hate your job, it's just not fulfilling.
Yep.
And I get a lot of fulfillment from this career. Now, I did go to college. I have a master's degree in exercise science. So am I using that? Kind of. I know how my body works. I know what's going on there. But this is something totally different. And it's interesting because now that I've gone through here, I've got the pesticide license, which I still need to get that license.
Yeah,
Shout
we
out
need to research
pesticide
that.
guys. I got to find out where that license is because I passed the test. But it is something that I joined and I was able to pursue further. And that's something that I want everyone to experience and understand. Like, this is an awesome gig for those who enjoy challenging themselves mentally, physically. And then there's, if you want to go like the full trifecta, mind, body, spirit, the satisfaction you get of helping somebody else with their problem. When we solve their water issue or we help their lawn look beautiful. I don't think we're just mowing lawns, dude. Like, we are literally transforming properties from which these parents are raising their kids, which these young homeowners, their whole life wanted to own a home and they bought it. And now they can have a landscaper, hardscaper, build that beautiful patio. And they're like, this is mine. I did this. I worked to build this. And so they provided whatever service to make their money. They pay our company. We go and we build their dream. Everybody's winning. So mind, body, spirit, you're satisfied. And like, I very much enjoy that about this. And it's, again, to the discussion, when you hear this, you're like, well, I get it, Zach. Like, bro, you don't got to push it. I really do. Because there's still kids out there who are going to meet their girlfriend's parents saying, I want to be a landscaper. And they're looking down like, oh, so my daughter can't do better than this? Better than this? Did you hear what I just said? This kid's choosing a path and a career that's not going to be taken over in the future. And it's fulfilling. What more could you want for somebody? That's a good life lived.
And there's a demand for it. I mean, there's a demand for this. If you think about it, we're like in a housing shortage right now. So there's X amount of houses that need to be built to get everybody in a home. Well, each one of those homes needs landscaping. So as long as there's a house to be built or a commercial building to be fabricated, cities to develop, then there's a need for landscaping. And it's as simple as that. But to go back into something you said, and it was talking about problem solving. You know, we're given problems and we have to solve it. That's the nature of everybody's job, and no matter what you do, is you're presented a problem, how do you solve it? And we can take it a step further. It's not just within the job, it's industry-wide. And for me, the problem that I've seen in the industry is we're not advocating enough, and I think this podcast will show you that, and you'll hear that. And so we've got an invitation to come to our school as like a career day, or our local school as a career day.
2 schools.
And yeah, 2 schools. Okay. And we've never done that in the past, and I've never seen a landscape company at our local schools. That's going to change. I'm hoping that we can set that up. And the goal I see with that is the problem I see with that, or saw before that, is that it was never there, so people didn't see it as a viable industry. People didn't see it as something that they could do as a career. And so if you can see a problem, fix it. Well, that's the problem. We're going to go out there. We're going to try to fix this. We're going to let people know that this industry is booming. This industry is viable for a successful career. And then we're going to educate them on how wide it is. I think when people think landscaping, they think of your lawn maintenance crews, your grass cutting crews. And my goal for when we go out here is to not bring a single lawnmower. I want to bring other aspects of the company to it so that they see it as, oh, I thought you guys just cut grass. Nope, that's what you thought. Now I'm going to show you that we do way more. You know, I really want to emphasize the chemical program because there's a lot of misconception out there in today's time with chemicals, and ooh, they're bad, ooh, they do this. And yes, they're just no different than the Clorox under your sink. If you mishandle it and you drink it, then yeah, you're probably going to get some side effects from that. But
Not
if you
recommended.
actually, but if you educate yourself on the chemicals you're spraying, and you don't abuse them, and you obey the label, which is the law, the label is the law, then you'll understand that, you know, they're relatively safe, and that there's been extensive studies on them, you know, for their application rates per acreage that you're applying them on, to not harm the environment. And so all the things that you're told about how bad they are, you'll learn that that's not entirely true. It's just misinformation being pushed out there, you know, propaganda, if you will. And so
Fake news.
yeah. So to show that to some kids and say, hey, this is a huge portion of the industry, it may be something that you might be interested in. It takes a vast amount of knowledge. You know, use a lot of math. Shout out to all my math teachers for forcing me to pass all my tests, because I use them all the time now because of the chemical program, and when we get into the hardscapes and we're building stuff. And so it's not an industry for the dumb. You have to be extremely smart to perform in this industry and to perform in it well. And so anyways, that's the podcast. We've made it to our destination today of where we're going. If you like what you're hearing, stay tuned. If you don't like what you're hearing, listen anyways. And if you want something you want addressed, you got to go there. That's not this building. And if you want something that you want addressed on this podcast, or something that you want explained more in detail, or something you're not quite sure about, well, shoot us a message, and we'll be glad to get this thing filmed and put on the podcast for you to hear, for you to critique, and for you to understand more about the green industry. So hope you guys enjoyed it.